You make decent money, not rich money, not struggling money, decent money. You've got a savings account with something in it. You contribute to your 401k, maybe not as much as you should, but you contribute. You don't go out every night. You don't buy things you can't technically afford. You're not irresponsible. And yet, at the end of every month, you look at your net worth, and it's basically the same number it was 6 months ago. Maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but basically the same. And the really unsettling part isn't the number, it's that you can't figure out what you're doing wrong, because from the outside, you're doing everything right. You're just not getting anywhere. Meanwhile, someone you went to college with, same degree, similar job, not obviously smarter or more disciplined than you, just hit $400,000 in investments at 38. And you're sitting there thinking, how? We started in the same place. What does he know that I don't? Here's what he knows, and it's not a stock tip. It's not a side hustle. It's something much more uncomfortable than that. There is a specific psychological trap that the middle class falls into almost universally, and the reason it's so dangerous is that it doesn't look like a trap. It looks like being responsible. It looks like being normal. It looks like doing what you're supposed to do. And that's exactly why it works. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about why two people with nearly identical incomes and opportunities end up in completely different financial positions a decade later. Today, we're going to name the trap, show you exactly what it costs in real dollars, explain why the middle class specifically is wired to fall into it, and tell you what actually breaking out of it looks like. Hit subscribe if you want to keep getting the real math. Let's get into it. Let's start by defining what we're actually talking about, because the trap isn't one thing. It's a system of interlocking behaviors that individually sound completely reasonable and collectively destroy your ability to build wealth. The technical name in behavioral economics is the middle class consumption identity trap, but you don't need the academic label. You just need to recognize the pattern. Here's how it works. You grow up middle class, or you reach middle class income as an adult, and you absorb a very specific set of beliefs about what financial responsibility looks like. You pay your bills on time. You don't carry credit card balances month to month. You buy a reliable car instead of a beater. You own a home because renting is throwing money away. You take a vacation once a year because you worked hard and you deserve it. You upgrade your lifestyle a little every time your income goes up, because that's what progress feels like. You save whatever's left over after all of that. Every single one of those behaviors is considered normal, responsible even. Your parents did it, your neighbors do it. Every financial advertisement you've ever seen is built around it, and every single one of them, in combination, is quietly making sure you never build serious wealth. That last point is the one that should stop you cold. You save whatever's left over, because that sentence right there is the engine of the trap, and we'll come back to it. Let's talk about the person this is actually happening to, because abstract concepts are easy to dismiss, and real numbers are not. Meet Daniel. He's 36. He makes $95,000 a year, which puts him solidly in the upper middle class by national standards. He got a series of raises in his late 20s and early 30s and did what felt natural with each one. When he hit $70,000, he moved out of his apartment and bought a house. When he hit $80,000, he traded in his 2014 Honda and got a 2022 SUV because the old car had 140,000 miles on it and he'd earned something nicer. When he hit $95,000, he and his wife started taking one real vacation a year, because life is short and they work hard and they're not going to be those people who just grind forever and never enjoy anything. Daniel has a 401k. He contributes 6% because that's what gets him the full employer match, and he's read enough personal finance content to know you always get the match. He has about $28,000 in savings. He pays his credit card off every month. He has no idea he's in a trap. Here's what Daniel's monthly cash flow actually looks like. His gross income of $95,000 becomes about $5,900 a month after federal and state taxes and his 401k contribution. His mortgage is $1,950. His SUV payment is $620. Car insurance for two vehicles runs $290. Student loans, because the degree that got him to $95,000 costs something, $380. Groceries for a family of three, $900. Utilities, $310. Streaming services, gym membership, phone plans, the subscriptions that each cost almost nothing individually, $210. And then what Daniel thinks of as his discretionary spending, dinners out, the occasional weekend trip, kids' activities, Amazon purchases that feel minor in the moment, averages out to about $740 a month. Added up, Daniel spends $5,900 a month and takes home $5,900 a month. His savings rate is functionally zero outside of his 401k contribution. But here's the part that makes this genuinely painful. Daniel doesn't feel like he's overspending. He doesn't have a boat. He's never been to Europe. He shops at Target, not Neiman Marcus. He packed lunch 3 days this week. He genuinely believes he's being responsible. And by middle-class standards, he is. That's the trap. Now let's run the real numbers on what this costs him, because this is where it stops being an abstract lifestyle observation and becomes a genuine financial emergency in slow motion. Daniel is 36. If he stays on his current trajectory, modest raises, modest lifestyle upgrades to match, saving whatever's left, which is roughly nothing beyond the 401k, here's where he ends up. His 401k at 6% contribution on $95,000 is $5,700 per year. With employer match, call it $8,550. At 8% average annual return over 29 years until he's 65, that grows to approximately $860,000. Sounds decent until you realize that $860,000 at a 4% safe withdrawal rate generates $34,400 per year in retirement income. Daniel currently spends about $70,800 per year. He's going to retire on less than half his current spending, assuming Social Security makes up a meaningful portion of the difference, which is a generous assumption. But here's the alternate version. What if Daniel broke the trap at 36 and redirected just $1,500 a month, money he's currently absorbing into lifestyle, into a basic index fund earning 8% annually? By 65, that $1,500 a month compounds to $2,067,000. Combined with his 401k, he's now looking at nearly $3 million. That's the difference between retiring with anxiety and retiring with options. And the $1,500 a month was always there. It was just going somewhere that felt normal instead of somewhere that builds wealth. The trap doesn't cost Daniel $1,500 a month. It costs him $1.2 million over the course of his working life. That's not a rounding error. That's the difference between financial independence and financial dependence expressed in a number.
So why does the middle class specifically fall into this? Because this trap doesn't affect people at every income level equally. And understanding why requires understanding something about how identity and money interact in a way most personal finance content completely ignores. Researchers at the University of Michigan published a study tracking spending behavior across income brackets and found something that should permanently change how you think about this. As household income rises from roughly $40,000 to $120,000, visible consumption spending, the kind of spending designed to signal status to peers, rises faster than income itself. People in this range spend a higher percentage of each additional dollar on things that demonstrate their income level than people who earn either significantly less or significantly more. Read that again. Middle-income earners spend a bigger share of each dollar on status signaling than either poor people or wealthy people. Why? Because the middle class is uniquely caught between two identity pressures, pulling in opposite directions at the same time. On one side, there's the fear of falling back. If you grew up without much or clawed your way to a decent income, you have a deep psychological need to prove, to yourself and to everyone around you, that you've made it. The car, the house, the vacation, the nice dinners, these aren't just purchases, They're evidence. Evidence that you're not where you started. Evidence that the work paid off. Evidence that you belong here now. On the other side, there's the pressure of the people above you. You can see wealth from where you stand. You work alongside people who make $150,000, $200,000. You see their cars in the parking lot. You see their vacation photos. And you want to feel like you're moving in that direction, even if the math says you're standing still. Economists call this relative deprivation. Sociologists call it keeping up with the Joneses. Behavioral psychologists call it social comparison spending. But whatever you call it, the mechanism is the same. You spend not based on what you need or even what you want in isolation, but based on what the people around you have. And in the middle class, the people around you are also spending to signal upward mobility. So you're all running a race where the finish line keeps moving and nobody's actually getting ahead. The wealthy don't play this game the same way. And this is the part that genuinely surprises people when they first hear it. Studies on the actual spending habits of high net worth individuals consistently find that they are dramatically less likely to spend on visible status symbols as a percentage of income than the middle class is. The millionaire next door who drives a 10-year-old Toyota isn't a cliché, it's a statistically documented pattern. People who build serious wealth tend to stop caring about what their spending says about them relatively early in the process. People who never build serious wealth tend to never stop caring. But there's a second layer to this trap that's even more insidious than the social comparison piece, and it's the one Daniel doesn't know he's caught in. It's the lifestyle inflation ratchet. And the reason it's called a ratchet is because it only turns in one direction. When your income goes up, your lifestyle goes up to match. But when your income stays flat or dips or something goes sideways, your lifestyle does not go back down. It locks in place. Because now it's not a lifestyle, it's a standard, it's your normal, and anything below it feels like failure. Think about what Daniel did with every raise. He didn't consciously decide to spend more, he just did what felt natural. He moved to a nicer place when he could afford to. He got a better car. He started going to better restaurants. And each of those upgrades felt like progress because it was progress, just progress in the wrong direction if the goal is building wealth. Here's the mathematical reality of lifestyle inflation that most people never sit with long enough to feel. If Daniel had frozen his lifestyle at $70,000 income and invested every dollar of every raise above that, here's what would have happened. From $70,000 to $80,000, that's roughly $600 a month after taxes redirected to investments. From $80,000 to $95,000, that's another $900 a month. Total additional investment, $1,500 a month at 8% over 29 years. We already ran that number, $2,067,000. Daniel didn't spend his raises on anything dramatic. He spent them on a nicer car and a real vacation and a bigger house, completely reasonable upgrades that any financial institution in the country would approve of, and they cost him $2 million. The ratchet doesn't feel dangerous because each click sounds completely justified. Of course you move to a better neighborhood when you can afford it. Of course you stop driving a car with 140,000 miles on it when you're making real money. Of course you take your family on a proper vacation. These aren't bad decisions in isolation. In combination, repeated across a career, they are the mechanism by which the middle class transfers wealth from their future selves to the present economy. Now let's talk about the third component of the trap, because this one is the most psychologically sophisticated and the least discussed. It's what researchers call present bias combined with mental accounting, and it explains something you've probably experienced without having a name for it. Present bias is the brain's tendency to value things available right now dramatically, more than the same things available in the future. It's why you know intellectually that $1,500 a month invested for 29 years becomes $2 million, but it still doesn't feel as real or as urgent as the new car that's sitting in the dealership right now looking very reliable and very reasonable at $620 a month. The future $2 million is theoretical, the car is real, the vacation is real, the nicer apartment is real, compound interest is a spreadsheet. Your brother-in-law's lake house that you'd like to be able to afford someday is a spreadsheet. Your retirement at 55 instead of 67 is a spreadsheet. The brain does not weight spreadsheets and reality equally, and every financial product ever marketed to the middle class knows this and exploits it without hesitation. Mental accounting is the companion trap. It's the brain's tendency to treat money differently depending on where it's mentally categorized, regardless of its actual fungibility. This is why Daniel can feel completely justified spending $740 a month on discretionary items, while also believing he can't afford to invest more than his 401k match. The $740 is categorized as lifestyle money. It feels like it belongs there. Pulling it out and redirecting it to investments feels like deprivation, even though mathematically it's just moving money from one account to another. This is also why the bonus feels like free money and the regular paycheck doesn't. Why the tax refund gets spent on something fun while the monthly paycheck gets carefully budgeted. The dollar amounts are identical. The psychological categories are completely different. And the middle class, aspirational, status-conscious, present-biased, is uniquely susceptible to both of these cognitive distortions simultaneously. Here's where most personal finance content would give you a budget template and call it a day. But that's not actually useful because the trap is psychological, not mathematical. Daniel knows he should save more. Knowing isn't the problem. The problem is that every system around him, social, cultural, financial, commercial, is designed to keep him exactly where he is. So what does actually breaking the trap look like? The first shift is structural, not motivational. Stop saving what's left over and start spending what's left over after saving. This sounds like a platitude until you understand the mechanism. When Daniel saves whatever's left at the end of the month, he's asking his willpower and discipline to fight against present bias, lifestyle inflation, social comparison pressure, and the entire consumer economy simultaneously, every single month, forever. That's not a fair fight, and willpower loses eventually. But when Daniel automates a transfer of $1,500 on the day his paycheck hits, before he sees it, before he budgets it, before he decides anything, the $1,500 is gone. His brain adjusts to what remains. He doesn't experience the deprivation because he never experienced the availability. Research from the National Bureau of Economic Research found that automatic enrollment in savings programs increases participation rates from roughly 49% to over 86%. The behavior didn't change. The default did. The same principle applies to investing outside of work. Automate it, make it invisible, remove the decision from the monthly cognitive load entirely.
The second shift is identity-based, and this is the harder one. You have to stop measuring financial progress by what you have and start measuring it by what you don't need. This sounds abstract, but it has a very concrete expression. The person who drives a paid-off 2016 Honda while their net worth climbs past $300,000 is not making a sacrifice. They have simply stopped needing the car to say something about them. The person who takes a budget trip instead of the aspirational vacation isn't deprived. They've disconnected their self-image from their spending pattern. This shift doesn't happen because you read about it. It happens when you see the compound interest numbers in your own account start to move in ways that feel more real than the dopamine hit of the purchase. The third shift is the one Daniel can make tomorrow without changing his income or his budget. It's auditing the recurring commitments, the subscriptions, the car payment, the housing cost, because these are where the ratchet locks in. Discretionary spending fluctuates. Fixed costs don't. Every fixed monthly commitment you make is a permanent claim on your future income that compound interest never gets access to. Daniel's $620 car payment, made on a vehicle he chose because he'd earned something nicer, is $620 a month that will never compound. At 8% over 20 years, that's $620 a month is $367,000. Not the car, the commitment to the car payment cycle, The wealthiest people Daniel knows aren't driving cheaper cars because they can't afford better ones. They're driving cheaper cars because they understand what $620 a month for 20 years actually costs, and a depreciating asset isn't worth it. Let me tell you how this ends for Daniel, because I think it matters to see both versions clearly. In version 1, Daniel stays in the trap. He gets a few more raises. His lifestyle rises to meet each one. He retires at 67 with $860,000 in his 401k, a paid off house, and a Social Security check. He's not destitute, he's fine. But he worked 40 years on decent income and ended up fine. Not free, not ahead, fine. In version 2, Daniel breaks the trap at 36. He doesn't make more money. He doesn't start a business or discover crypto or get lucky in the market. He just automates $1,500 a month into a basic index fund and stops upgrading his lifestyle every time his income goes up. He keeps the paid off Honda. He keeps the house he already has. He takes one trip a year that fits the budget without financing. He retires at 58 instead of 67 with just under $3 million. He spends the last decade of his career taking calculated risks he would never have taken before because he doesn't need the paycheck anymore. He becomes, gradually and almost quietly, the person his college friends are wondering about. The difference between those two versions of Daniel is not intelligence. It's not income. It's not opportunity. It's a psychological framework. It's understanding that the middle class was sold a version of financial responsibility that was never actually designed to build wealth. It was designed to build consumption. Responsible, sustainable, lifelong consumption that keeps the economy moving and keeps you exactly where you are. Understanding that is not pessimistic, it's clarifying, because once you see the trap clearly, you can actually choose whether to stay in it. You are not failing at being middle class. The middle class standard, followed faithfully, produces exactly the results you're getting. The question is whether you want the middle class result or whether you want something different. And if you want something different, the math is not complicated. It just requires stopping the behaviors that feel responsible and starting the ones that actually are. Start there. Your future self will not need to do the math on a Sunday night to know it was worth it.